Our next and final prayer offering today will be that of a Muslim prayer. And this prayer offering is important because he comes a long way. It's a long history. A former Muslim chaplain with the U.S. Army stationed in Guantanamo Bay for several years before facing indictment from the U.S. military for all charges to inevitably be dropped. Now please come up, James E. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is James E., and I'm going to open with a short Islamic prayer, and actually they are in fact the first 7 verses of the Quran, which are recited in each of the 5 daily prayers that Muslims make. And they're almost oft recited verses, and as such they are the foundation of peace in every Muslim heart, in every Muslim community, in every Muslim society. And I'll first recite in Arabic and then give you the translation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Al-Fatiha, the opening. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to Allah, cherisher and sustainer of the worlds, most gracious, most merciful, master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom you bestowed grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. As I was introduced as a former Muslim chaplain of the U.S. Army, I want to talk a little bit today about my journey and my story, which started in this life just a little over a half century ago, in the year of the monkey, in the state of Illinois. Later, I would grow up in New Jersey, and I was raised Lutheran, born of Chinese American parents, a veteran, my father of the World War II. And after graduating West Point, my journey for spirituality led me to Islam, to discover Islam. And one of the things that enamored me most about Islam was something that I see here today. People of different colors, of different races, of different backgrounds. Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, North America. And that's in fact what I saw the first time I made a journey to Mecca, which was for me at first a minor pilgrimage, where I saw people of all different diversities coming together in unity. And as I was a young second lieutenant at the time, I realized at that time in my military career that there were no Muslim chaplains serving the ranks of the military. We had Christian chaplains, Catholic and Protestant. We had Jewish chaplains, but there were no Muslim chaplains. And I would leave active duty and pursue studies in Islam under traditional Muslim scholars in Syria, Damascus, Syria. And that was starting in the summer of 1995. and I would resume studies there for a few years and come back on active duty in January of 2001 and return to the U.S. military after having first served as an air defense artillery officer during the first Gulf War, but coming back in 2001 as a chaplain. I wasn't the first Muslim chaplain, but by that time in 2001 there were a small handful of Muslim chaplains. So of those, I was one of the first. And it wasn't long after that return to active duty in 2001, on that fateful day of September 11th, the tragic attacks on the World Trade Center. It wasn't long after those attacks that I, as a Muslim chaplain, was then sent to Guantanamo Bay to be the chaplain of the now notorious prison camp that is still in existence today, with still 40 prisoners held indefinitely without charge at this naval military base run by the U.S. military. I was sent there in November of 2002, and at the time there were some 660 or so prisoners being held, all who were Muslim, and that's why they sent me, a Muslim chaplain. And perhaps it was because the government of the United States at the time wanted to be able to say to the world that, yes, we do have close to 700 Muslim prisoners in this prison camp, but we also have brought our Muslim chaplain, which might perhaps be a sign that we were treating these prisoners in a humane way. But when I got down there, that was certainly not the case. It was a situation of chaos. Prisoners were being abused, being tortured. Not only was there physical abuse, but there was psychological abuse. And one of the things that jumped out me right from the first day that I went to this place called Guantanamo Bay was that religion was being used in Guantanamo as a weapon. It was the exploitation of Islamic and Muslim culture, Muslim practice and beliefs against these prisoners in order to try and break them down. And this, no doubt, in my mind, was psychological torture and abuse. And as I heard these complaints directly from the prisoners themselves, especially when they came back from interrogation rooms, I took those complaints, I wrote reports and sent them up the chain of command to my supervisors. And for some reason, those reports, those things and complaints that I wrote about to the chain of command were interpreted as me being subversive, as me being treacherous, as being a traitor to this country, as being a criminal. And I found myself locked away in a prison similar to Guantanamo. I found myself being subjected to some of those things that were being subjected to prisoners at Guantanamo, like something called sensory deprivation, where I had these goggles put over my eyes and these devices put over my ears to prevent me from hearing or seeing. Something called sensory deprivation, which was done to me to instill that fear and intimidation, just as it was done to the prisoners at Guantanamo. My religious rights, when I was held in solitary confinement for 76 days, were kept from me. But to make a long story short,